We're ready? Nice. Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you being here tonight for our South Weber City Council meeting of May 25th, 2021. It is 6:03 p.m. and all council members are in attendance. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Windsor, and then Councilwoman Petty will give a prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee with gratitude for the ability we have to come together as a community and to discuss the important matters that affect our amazing city and citizens. We ask a blessing upon all of those that keep us safe, our firefighters, our sheriffs, and all of our military personnel. Please bless them with protection that they can continue to protect us. We ask that we'll all be able to have open hearts and open minds and be able to discuss things in an appropriate manner that we can have the best outcome for our city. We love thee and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Windsor, Councilwoman Petty. First off, we have our Corona update. South Weber City has 10 active cases and 811 total cases throughout the pandemic. There's been around 330,000 doses administered in Davis County, and 46.7% of Davis County population has received one dose. 37.3% of Davis County population has received 2 doses. Now vaccinations are approved for kids ages 12 to 15, and currently 22% of 12 to 15-year-olds have received their first dose. All right, next we have public comment. Please state your name and address. Keep your comments, please, to 3 minutes or less. Please address the entire council and know that we won't respond during public comment. We're now open for public comment.
Michael Grant, 2622 Deer Run Drive, City Council and Mayor. I got 2 things to say. One is at the last Planning Commission meeting, I'm not sure why they did not approve the lofts proposal. City Council can actually approve it. If they have met all the requirements, please approve it. Because I think, I'm not a technical person, but if they have met all the requirements from the then Planning Commission meeting, December 2020. So if they have met the requirements, please approve it. As much as I don't like, I think we need to be fair to them. Number 2 is the no turn on red sign in front of Maverick, the new sign that came up. Short-term solution, it's okay, we can buy it. I mean, this is not New York City. We should not be having no turn on red sign for very long. So either put a new lane so that people can go to Salt Lake on 89 South from Frontage Road, or move the sign, relocate the big sign that's blocking the view, or get rid of the sign. But no stop on red is not a long-term option. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Paul Sturm, 2527 Deer Run Drive. I have what I call my pre-public comments. It is not my intent to be overly critical in my public comments tonight. My goal is for the City Council to consider and potentially accept the correct versions of the restated development plan, as well as the plats and improvement plans for the lofts. If incomplete or inaccurate versions are approved tonight, South Weber will have to live with what is approved. Now, a caveat on this is that my public comments were written from what was available at the time, and subsequently some of these have been changed. The first one is a problem with the current packet. I would like to point out that the new packet B that was created on 24 May contains an incorrect file and agenda number on page 3 of 93. The document at this location should be the one addressed to City Council by Sherry Pippin that was initially presented in the original corrupted complete package available on 21 May 21. The memo included is from the PC meeting packet of 13 May 21. It is unknown whether or not this file contains the same information as a result of events that occurred during the Planning Commission meeting on 13 May that could have been included. Item 2, Loft's presentation topics discussion. And it's the 2 agenda items 9 and 10. Before full consideration of agenda items 9 and 10, actions on the lofts, I would like to share some of what happens during the Planning Commission meeting of 13 May 21. If you did not attend in person or watched online, I do not know if the following has been relayed to most City Council members. At approximately 1 hour and 18 minutes into the 13 May 21 PC meeting video, Sherry Pippin, South Weber City Planner, stated that City Council would be presented with the complete packet. That is, both the information presented at the 17 December 20 Planning Commission meeting that had preliminary PC approval with 4 requested updates. And these were included in the 13 May 21 Planning Commission meeting, plus the packet information from the 13 May 21 that included the updates. All of this information is not currently included in the packet for tonight's City Council meeting. At approximately 1 hour and 23 minutes, a motion was made and a vote held for the approval of the final site plan improvements and amended development and agreement for the lofts at Deer Run, located at approximately 7870 2700 East by developer Joseph Cook of Deer Run Development. The outcome of the vote was 2 ayes and 2 nays. Thus, the motion failed because there were only 4 present. At approximately 1 hour and 24 minutes, Sherry and Jamie Blakely stated that the action on the lofts would move to City Council without a favorable recommendation for approval. At approximately 1 hour and 29 minutes, Sherry restated that the packet for the City Council meeting for 25 May 21 meeting would be the complete packet, both 17 December 20 and 13 May 21. This is important because the 17 December 20 packet has information that has not been presented to the City Council previously. And then the note is, my public comment on the lofts during that Planning Commission meeting on 13 May regarding that meeting's packet was, the reviews conducted by the South Weber City Planner and City Engineer indicate that various items to be addressed during the 17 December 20 Planning Commission have been adequately addressed. The preliminary plats, site plan improvement plans that were presented on 17 December 20 also need to be included by reference because those plans are the only the plans presented at the Planning Commission meeting are only a small subset of what was presented and agreed upon. My public comment request, which is above, which I just stated, made at the 13 May 21 Planning Commission meeting, was the same that was ultimately proposed by Sherry to be presented at the City Council tonight. That is, that the information from both 17 December 20 and 13 May 21 meetings packets be included in the 25 May 21 City Council packet. It is also what was requested by Julie Losey during the 13 May 21 Planning Commission meeting regarding her nay vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Is there any further public comment? Okay, then we will move to our action items.
Mayor, can I just make a quick comment?
You may.
Thank you. I just wanted to have a response to the red light, the no turn on red at 2700 East. That was a surprise to all of us here at City Hall and with city staff. We're not quite sure why that was put up. The Public Safety Committee did discuss this area. It was an option that we did discuss. It was not one that we favored. So we're not really clear what's happening there. We're still trying to figure out what's going on there. But to answer some other questions that's been going around, when development comes in on the east side of the frontage road, that lane will be extended as well to add a third lane there. So that is the plan, and we're going to get more information on that no red.
But it was installed by UDOT,
Yes.
not by the city.
Exactly. So just some information for those. Thank you, Michael, for asking that question. I appreciate it.
I don't think we have a tall enough ladder. Do we? I know. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Haley. All right. Our next item is approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the April 27th, 2021 minutes, the April check register, and the March budget to actual. Are there any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further comment? We'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries. All right, just want to state that the public hearing for the tentative budget 2021-22 will be continued until June 8th, 2021. So hopefully no one was here for that tonight. Item number 7 is Ordinance 2021-03, Bryce Estates rezone at 325 East, 6650 South by developer Nate Reeve. This property includes approximately 1.5 acres and is currently zoned agricultural. There is an existing home and other auxiliary buildings located on the property. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property to residential low moderate and split the property into 2 platted lots. The existing home will continue to front on 6650 South, lot number 1, and the new lot will front on 6725 South, lot number 2. 6725 South is a cul-de-sac that was built with phase 1 of the Hidden Valley Meadows subdivision. The rezone is consistent with the general plan. Lot number 1 will continue to use their existing utility services. New utility services will be installed to serve lot number 2. Frontage road improvements already exist for lot 2, and no additional right-of-way needs to be dedicated to the road. However, right-of-way dedication for a 50-foot right-of-way on 6650 South and frontage improvements are required for lot 1. At the May 13th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend that the council approve the rezone preliminary and final plats for Bryce Estates. Are there comments or questions on this? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2021-03?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 2021-03, Bryce Estates rezone at 325 East, 6650 South.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any further comment? Then we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries unanimously. Item number 8 is Resolution 21-27, Bryce Estates Final Plat by developer Nate Reeve. As stated previously, the rezone is consistent with the general plan. At the May 13th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend that the council approve final plat for Bryce Estates. Are there comments or questions? Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-27?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve Resolution 21-27, Bryce Estates final plat.
Do I have a second?
I was seconded.
Okay, any further comment? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries unanimously. The next two items concern the lofts development. The need for greater clarification in the development agreement for the lofts was realized as the development process ensued. A public hearing was held on December 17th, 2020 at a Planning Commission meeting, and the Planning Commission recommended approval of the amended and restated development agreement. The council requested that approval of the amended and restated development plan come before the council with the final plats and improvement plans. We'll begin the dialogue concerning the development agreement. Then the council can decide if they want to vote on that item first or continue with the second item before voting on each individual one. So we'll begin with Resolution 21-28, amended and restated development plan for the lofts at Deer Run by developer Joseph Cook. The agreement, among other things, includes a change in density to 60 residential units, as well as a ground floor commercial component fronting 2700 East. Only a portion of the ground floor of that building will be commercial, and the other two buildings will only be residential. Okay, are there comments or questions on the amended and restated development plan?
I got three. If
Go
I,
ahead.
Paragraph 6 of the development agreement, density. I'm not excited about the last sentence. I would suggest, if you want to put up page 106 or 306, Lisa. (106) of 306. It's probably 107. Yeah. If you go to paragraph 6, it starts with the word however. As you look at this, I've got a suggested language here that I would should say, however, that portion of the development fronting 2700 East Street shall have no less than 50% of the floor area on the first level of that structure being commercial. I don't like the way it says less than 100%. What's less than 100%? 99, 98. The way it's written, I think, is somewhat ambiguous. I think the development that's before us does have more than 50%, so it still works. I don't think it's detrimental to the developer. I think it just clarifies that statement. As you think on that one, my other
Wayne, can I interrupt you? Which paragraph is that again?
paragraph 6,
Okay.
it's on your screen that Lisa has in front of you, starting with the word however. The way it reads, if you scroll up a little bit more, please.
I got it. You're
Second
good.
page. It says not 100% of the floor area. I don't really like the wording, not 100%. I would rather say less than 50%, have no less than 50% commercial. So 50% or more is what we're saying. We're
Right.
saying the same thing, but I think it's more clear if we say no less than 50%.
Yeah, the original wording, if you go to page 93, states basically that Wayne's talking about. This plan has 50% of the first floor of the building has commercial space with
Yes.
the rest being residential.
Yeah.
So that shift to less than 100%, I agree. That was a
I just
concern I
think
had.
it just clarifies the intent. And if the developer would like to comment on that later, that's just one of my comments. The other two, and I've got my notes here if you want to read. Paragraph number 8, Lisa, if you can scroll down, please. The detention basin, I think there was some discussion at Planning Commission and even a public comment that it should be lined with grass or sod. And I think the intent of the developer was to do that, even though it says, and the question is, does our city code and city standards require detention basins to have grass? If it doesn't, then I think we need to add that statement in here to clarify the intent that the detention basin is supposed to be grass lined.
Our city code does dictate that it is grassed and sprinklered.
Thank you. I wasn't able to find that, so you can mute that statement. The last comment is on paragraph 14.3. This one has to deal with the time of the agreement. I don't think we need to reset the clock to the original terms of 7 years. So I think the term of this agreement should be for a period of 5 years, since we've already used 2 years of the agreement. So I would recommend that be changed to 5. 14.3. says the term of this agreement shall be for a period of 7 years. That was part of the original. That was 2 years ago, back in 2019. So I think we've utilized 2 years. So I think 5 years is reasonable. And I think the intent of the developer is to move faster in 5 years. So I don't know if that's an issue. Those would be my recommendations or changes to the document.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Windsor. Are there other comments or questions on the development agreement?
I have a question. Quinn, tell me what page that was on the previous, you said it was
93.
93.
So I have a few, Mayor. Did you have any more, Angie? or-
No, thank you, Quinn.
So on page 88, just a clarification, the statement is made. In the paragraph right above general plan analysis, it states by approving the final plat, the city approves the conditional use permit for the project. We previously approved the CUP or not?
If you notice, there was a document presented on your desk prior to the meeting. It is the actual conditional use permit language. And initially, when daycare was part of this discussion, there was a discussion about the conditional use permit that would go along with this development. As that was removed, the specifics to the daycare and the need for conditional use permit related to that use also went away. And so our city code outlines conditional use permit process, and it is identical to the development process. So ultimately, the question about conditional use permit is, what are the detrimental impacts, if any, and what mitigation steps or conditions can be put in there? The process of development has addressed essentially all of those things. So the conditional use permit that you see before you would be the conditional use permit that goes along with the development. It's not a separate and distinct action in this case, because there's not separate and distinct conditions that have been put on it. It's just related to the development process. So does that answer the question, or did I miss the mark on that?
So basically, if I'm understanding correctly, with all the changes, the original need for a CUP has changed and is now covered by most of the development.
Yeah, so conditional use permits are related to land use. And so as commercial development comes in to occupy the space in the building, when they come in for a business license, if it is a business that would require conditional use, then that conditional use permit would be for that use and that business as part of the business license process. So the need for conditional use permit now with this project as it stands is directly related to the development process, and any items that would have been related to conditional use permit are now subsumed within the development process that way. It's a little bit unique to maybe conversations we've had with conditional use permit in the past. And so I'm happy to answer questions there, but ultimately the conditional use permit is part of the process, but there's not additional conditions there that haven't been addressed through the development process.
Did the planning commission need to send a recommendation on the conditional use permit?
Not specifically, no,
Specifically.
again, because it's part of the development process.
Thank you.
And we'll be issuing conditional uses on each business as they come in.
Yes. I do think that it would be wise for us as part of a motion to include this document so that there is an official CUP form. We wanted to do that to document that there's a CUP form related to this. But again, the conditions aren't aren't different than any of the development conditions. So if somebody questions in the future and looks back and says, what is the conditional use permit for that? There's a permit number and everything in a form that's created, but again, it just harkens back to the development standards and guidelines that are there.
So which resolution would that need to be in for the development plan?
Development agreement.
For
The second one.
The second one, the
Yeah,
final plan.
plat and
Okay.
improvement plans.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Queen,
Right.
can I interrupt you just real quick?
Certainly.
If anyone has questions, I neglected to say the planning commission volunteered, and Julie, I apologize, I didn't even pay attention, volunteered to answer anybody's questions on their vote. That's why they're here. Maybe you're here just to witness, but I believe they made the comment that they would come and explain any questions we had with the vote that the recommendation that was not given. So.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a couple other questions. Just to follow up on the planning commission notes, there are a few open items that were supposed to be addressed later. I just want to confirm that they were. Page 93, 94, it says, we still do not know the location of the mechanical equipment and cannot address whether or not it will be adequately screened. This is an issue we can address with final plans. So were those addressed with the final plans? We know where the mechanical will be located? Still no?
If the developer wants to respond to that, they could probably do so better than myself. They do not have a flat roof where mechanical equipment is sometimes located. So if you want, if it's all right with the council, that would be a question they could answer probably better than
Please.
me.
My name is Fred Cox. I live at 4466 Early Duke Street in West Valley. I did respond to staff on this. The original design had a flat roof, and the intent is that the rooftop units would be hidden by the parapet. When we went to a pitched roof, our intent is not to put the mechanical units on the roof. So we've got several places that we can put them, and that was explained in the letter back to staff. One, we have balconies that have guardrails, and they could be used to screen some small units there. We have some fake dormers on the roof that we could put units inside, and we have retaining walls in various places that we can put them behind. So the intent is as you drive down the street, you wouldn't be seeing mechanical units, and that was the concern. And we did respond to staff on that, and their response back was, oh yeah, that came from our original concern of it being a flat roof. And since it's not a flat roof, they weren't as concerned with that item. But yeah, we did address that. At least that was the intent.
Thank you, Fred.
That was originally brought up by Barry and passed on to Sherry. I thought I had remembered that in her memo somewhere, either the planning commission or city council, maybe it wasn't into the one to city council, that she mentioned that had been addressed.
She did mention in the comments to the planning commission that it was no longer an issue, but it's a valid question.
And Fred, while you're still there,
Sure.
the other follow-up question is on page 97. It said no irrigation plan has been submitted. This will need to be done for final approval. Again, confirming that is
It's been
understood now?
submitted, yes,
Okay.
and I reviewed it.
Okay,
Yeah, and we have lots of grass, by the way, so.
thank you. My last two comments at this point, there was a question about the fence location and with the neighbor, the Eddings. And I know that they were going to get with you separately, so I want to make sure that that's still going forward, working.
Yeah, I got
there.
her contact information, took a photo of it, sent it to engineers, to Joseph, everybody. One of her comments is whether we have to move the fence. There was a request from staff to make sure that the fences actually did follow the property lines, which they currently don't. As long as we can meet the engineering requirements, because the number one goal is to create a scenario where no one gets flooded out. And we've got this buffer before going into your storm drain system. So that's the first goal. The second goal is obviously if we don't have to move a fence and we can solve it. They've got some pretty fences. I don't remember those fences looking that gorgeous 2 or 3 years ago, but Joseph said that he didn't have any problem with leaving a fence if it didn't create another problem. And so I believe the conversation has started, and I don't know where that'll end up, but the goal is to be a good neighbor. But the first goal is from an engineering point of view, we don't want to flood anybody out, and so the berming and all of that needs to be solved. Once that's solved, her comment was it's just grass, you're not using it. Why do we have to move our fence? And if there is not an engineering reason, I think I'm speaking for Joseph that if there's a fence there, not that, I don't even know that anybody, she was saying, can you buy it? You know, whatever. I'm not sure that anybody is worried about moving a fence a foot unless it's going to create a problem with engineering.
Thank you.
Before you sit down, I mean, that was one of my comments is on the mechanical equipment, because that's what I do. Your first two options are against code. So you're going to have a lot of condensing units sitting around on the ground, and I am concerned of where they're going to be screened. You can't put them in a dormer. I don't care unless you're going to vent that dormer on 3 sides plus the roof. And you can't put them on a balcony next to a kid playing. So you're going to put them on the ground. You got to screen wall them somehow. So that is one of my comments, that you're going to have 60 condensing units sitting somewhere.
And if you look at the site plan, there are retaining walls.
You got to have them located so that you can come up and down to each unit. You're going to have groups of 4 and 6. You're not going to have a group of 60 over here
Right.
on that retaining wall. So that is I actually was expecting to see that addressed in an actual, some way, mechanical yard, something.
Depending on the type of mechanical system, I've done assisted living center and we use dormers to be able to
I understand that's a different system than what you're doing in an apartment.
understand. But the 3 options are the only ones that I'm aware of. So
But they will be screened, is that what you're telling me?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, Councilman Soderquist, did you have any more questions?
My final question was just the traffic concerns we had in the past and all the things that were discussed previously about egress, ingress, and stuff the road. I know you've done traffic studies and everything's there from the city standpoint. We're obviously, it sounds like okay with the traffic.
Yes, this layout, I believe, circulates the traffic much better than the previous one. And they have put together an exhibit in their plans that shows the site distance for each of those locations. And I'm satisfied that that's adequate.
Thank you.
Are our questions going beyond the development agreement? Because I've got a series of other questions with regards to the plat and the layout if we're going into that at this point in time.
We were going to wait to go into that, but
Okay.
do
Or
we want to, are there other questions on the development agreement? Or do we want to?
do we want to combine the 2 issues?
And I'm fine with that. We can move to the next one and then do the motions at the end if we'd like. Is that what the council would like to do? Okay, then if there aren't any other questions on the development agreement, we can move to the final plat and improvement plan. I just have a couple of comments to make on, or an explanation. The council is being asked to take administrative action on the final plat. As such, the role of the council is to determine whether the amended development agreement, final plat, site plan, and improvement plan comply with the plain language of the city's land use regulations. The decision is bound by the law and cannot be based on public or personal opinion. The Lofts at Deer Run received approval of their preliminary plat at the December 17th, 2020 meeting of the Planning Commission. At their meeting on May 13th, the Planning Commission had a 2-2 tie on the vote to recommend the council give final approval. One commissioner was absent from the meeting. The two dissenting commissioners gave different reasons for their nay vote. Accordingly, this comes to the council without a recommendation from commission. It should be noted that no recommendation is not the same as a recommendation to deny. It simply means that the council is asked to consider the request without the benefit of a commission insight or action. The final plat is compliant with all engineering and planning standards. The improvement plans have been reviewed and accepted by the city engineer as meeting city standards where applicable. The city has received letters from Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, Davis and Weber Canal Company, and South Weber Water Improvement District. Those agencies have reviewed the plans and provided final approval letters. Specific construction requirements related to their services will be discussed and reviewed at a staff-led pre-construction meeting. The architectural and landscaping plans were reviewed and approved as part of the preliminary plat approval. City Code 10-5 and 10-7 require that projects over an acre in size receive a conditional use permit. For residential projects requiring a CUP, the review and approval process is identical to the subdivision process. By approving the final plat, the city approves the conditional use permit for the project. Review of relevant portions of the general plan were reviewed as part of the approval of the preliminary plat. There are no further general plan considerations at this time. Based on review by the city planner and city engineer, the final plat for the Lofts at Deer Run is fully compliant with the requirements necessary to be given approval by the city council. So are there any specific code concerns regarding the final plat and improvement plans the council would like to address?
I just would love to hear from the commissioners since they're here. So at any point during this discussion, I would love to have their perspective.
Why don't we have them come up right now? That would be great. Gary?
I'm Gary Boatwright, 579 East Peterson Parkway. I'm chair of the Planning Commission currently. It was an interesting meeting. I was a little bit surprised with how it turned out. Based on my understanding of our role as the Planning Commission, it was an administrative item. And well, as reflected in my vote, I felt that it met the code requirements. I don't want to speak for Commissioner Losi, first since she's here, but also we had some technical difficulties during that meeting. And she did express some of her concerns in the chat feature on Zoom. But I don't want to misrepresent her since she is here. But I was surprised by both the nay votes, just based on the fact that it was an administrative item and not a legislative item.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Julie, would you like to? One at a time, Skip.
Don't need to clean it. I think we're fine. So Julie Losi, 2541 East, 8200 South. I actually was not attending this meeting because I knew Gary was coming to represent the Planning Commission. That Planning Commission meeting was very frustrating. Aside from the technical difficulties, I believe you got about 10% of my input and my thoughts and my comments. And while I realize it was an administrative decision, the reason I got my no vote, and the developers can take this for what it's worth, and they maybe presented an entire packet to the city. I don't feel as a Planning Commission that we were given a full complete packet to give any kind of a recommendation on. And I've expressed various emails, back and forth with Sherry. I think Jamie's been included on some, Brandon's been included on some. How can we weigh in on something that we haven't seen 100%? I did not feel comfortable casting a positive vote because of that. And even right now, I still feel like there are a lot of things that we're missing that were requested and asked for in the preliminary when preliminary was given. And again, that was done with a different Planning Commission than you're dealing with right now. We have new members, and I appreciate the time that's been given to get us up to speed and get us into our new roles. But again, there should have been that information disclosed not only to the public, but also to the Planning Commission. Because once again, I take my role seriously and I don't want to recommend something and then go back and be like, oops, we missed it. Sorry, we didn't ask for clarification on the irrigation plans. That was a request that Barry Burton brought up. The radon mitigation systems that the developer said he's going to include, I don't see anywhere in the plans that we received, in the packet that we received, that actually show where those systems are going to be placed in the units. You know, what's been brought up with the mechanical. Where are we putting these 60 mechanical units, given that we can't put it onto a roof? You know, these are things that need to be addressed before we're going and giving a final approval for a development that we know it's coming. I just want it to be the best development that it can possibly be for our future citizens. I want it to be something that is safe. I want it to be something that matches our code. And I think we're close, but I still think there's a couple of items that need to be addressed and need to be considered, vetted. And if there are conditions that need to be put into place, let's do it now. Do it while we still have the opportunity to say this needs to be done. Our conditional uses, our permits, all of that can take place before approval is given. So that was why I gave the no vote. Has nothing against development. I'm sure they're going to do their very best to give our citizens the best thing that it can possibly be. So any other questions? Nope. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Julie.
Julie.
All right, council.
So I had a question before, just coming back with what Blair was saying, and then just to piggyback what Julie just said with the mechanical. It says that they need to have a plan in place. I kind of heard, well, we're going to put it somewhere, but we don't really know where. Is that an answer? Because I kind of feel like it's we'll do it somewhere. Just wondering if we can get a little more firm answer on that.
Staff had asked the question and I responded in writing, and that was why staff basically told the Planning Commission that it was no longer an issue. But the three items that I mentioned, first off, as you drive up and down the freeway, you can see lots of condensing units plopped on top of roofs, and we had committed not to do that when we went to a pitched roof. So that's step one. A lot of units create little closets on their balconies to put mechanical units in. There's a number of ways that can be solved, whether it's on the balcony or whether it's behind we have a number of places where we have retaining walls, or if we go with a different system, in some cases, we can use the dormers as exhaust. And those are the three things that I responded back in writing to the last request from our new planner to make sure that that was clear. But yeah, I'm not saying that it's, as far as I was concerned, it was solved. And then when we got the comments back after the review, that's what it said is oh, these were primarily concerns when it was a flat roof.
Okay, so I have the PC minutes here, and it does show that, Sherry says mechanical equipment, where it would be, which the applicant did. So if I'm understanding correctly, your email to her was one of those three options that you guys are looking into.
We listed all three.
Okay.
But those three do not include putting it on the roof. So.
Okay. Thank you. I wasn't clear on that.
If you look at a roof plan with the dormers and everything, it would be really difficult to do anything on the roof.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
clarifying.
Other comments?
Yep. The first one, and this is more for staff, and I don't know if this is a code question or not, just clarification. Did you turn to page 116 of 306, Lisa? I'm a little concerned, and I don't know if I should be, but parcel A overlaps the GUE, and I think that's the general utility easement that they're listing there. And what I don't know, because I haven't done the measurements, the survey measurements, is that the outline of the building, and so the building's going to be in the GUE, or do we have an issue with that parcel A being inside the GUE where the others are not?
There's an overhang of building A, but
Okay.
it's not the footprint of the building is outside of it.
thank you. That was my clarification, so there's not an issue there.
No.
Next one, and I'm doing this with a smile on my face, developer. Little nit, if you turn to page 131, I believe it's 131. And I'm having fun with you. Okay, so just take it with it. Well, it's not 131. My packet had a different number. It's basically you list out your parking stalls. You have A for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for building A. Your building B has parking stalls labeled C, and your building C has parking stalls labeled B. I think you may have switched the building numbers. I don't know if you're actually going to stencil them out there, but you might want to. My message is, yes, I did look at this in great detail, and that's what I picked up. So just a little nit. More for staff, and I don't have the right numbers here, so I'm not going to be able to get it to you, but the utility plans, it's not clear to me where the operation, maintenance, repair, and replacement delineation on the storm drain and sanitary sewer are. I see where they hook up into the existing city system, but being that this is private system and they're maintaining it, where's the delineation for storm drain and sanitary sewer? It wasn't called out on the drawing, so I'd like to know where we pick up our responsibility and where they're not. Is it at the property line? Is it at the structure out in the street for storm drain? I see where they're, for the sewer, they connect into an existing sewer manhole. That makes sense as delineation mark, but it's not called out. The storm drain continues on down. They actually extend it down 2,700 further to the north, and they tap into an existing storm drain drop box. Where does our ownership and responsibility start and their stop?
It would be at those locations. For some reason, I thought that they had indicated on one of the sheets. I can look and see if it's on there somewhere.
I was, I had the packet I was looking at had a different page number, so I wish I could show you the exact map. But if you look at the utilities, and I'll scroll through it real quickly. It's a big packet. Retaining walls. There we go. If you look at, start with 149 of 306. And 140, 150. Where is it over the detent? There you go. 153. And if you zoom in on the left-hand side, the left-hand side of the detention pond, you can see where they connects into the sanitary sewer, but I don't see a call out ownership delineation.
I'm looking on the page that I would expect it to be on, and
I'm on page.
a lot of pages, so I thought that I had seen it, but it would be something easy to add.
Yeah. You just need to clarify that so that we know and future staff know. Now, the last question I had has to do with the water and the 3-inch master water meter that's out in the street. It says it's privately owned. I thought the city owned up to and including the water meter.
That's correct.
Why are they owning this water meter?
They don't.
That's called out on the drawings as privately owned.
We can have them update that.
Yeah, I can show you on. I'm trying to find the drawing. There it is. It says 3-inch culinary water meter, master meter, private.
Right. I think what that's trying to say is from that point on, it's private, but it is on the meter note, so I can see where that would be confusing.
All right. So it is the intent for us to own and maintain that meter.
Correct.
On their
Yes.
property. And so we do have some responsibility for the water line within their property boundary back to the connection point.
Correct.
And they are going to have OM responsibility on the circular loop to the south where we have the isolation valve. Their ownership is from the isolation valve to the west. So they're going to have some responsibility out the street.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Windsor. Other questions?
I have a general one to the staff, considering Commissioner Losey's comments, all these different things that are not clearly identified or might be identified but not clearly shown in the packet. How many of those are expected or required relative to, I mean, if we don't have them defined here, they obviously have to follow code. but is there code that we wouldn't necessarily like? And so we need to define those. I don't know the going forward expectation on things that aren't clearly identified tonight.
To just clarify the question, when you say things that aren't clearly identified, things that came before the planning commission at preliminary and were approved, or things that you feel you haven't seen at all?
More so things that aren't in the documentation. They may be there, but we haven't seen them. But if they aren't there, you know, like the mechanical, yes, it apparently was there, the radon, the irrigation, you know, all these different things. How many of those would become a problem if they're not identified with our, you know, actions tonight?
Well, Dave, if I might, I can respond to two of those. The radon and the mechanical units feels to me like that, for sure the radon would be identified when they submit their actual building plans for a building permit. And at the same time, on those same plans, they would be showing the mechanical units, and they would have to be shown how they're going to screen those. That's just reviewed at a staff level, but that would be the way I'm looking at this. If that's not sufficient, if the council feels that's not sufficient to review it at that point, then more could be added to this packet.
Right, I guess what I'm looking at is, you know, obviously the administrative action versus getting into the fine details that would
Can
come out later.
And not
anyway.
also some of the site issues and those, I mean, we're talking about a plat, an improvement. Some of the site things can also be done on the construction documents as well. Am I incorrect in that? I think that's part of the reason why we don't have all of the information that's there. We're just doing 2 items of the many that have been presented. Is that a simpler way of saying it?
I think that's a fair way to say it. I hesitate with the idea that not everything's been presented.
Right.
There are decisions that were made and information that went before the planning commission in December and an approval of that information. There's a balance, I think, in what goes in packets. And sometimes that balance isn't hit properly, perhaps. But the idea is what goes into the packet, generally speaking, is the items that are directly associated with that decision that night. There's lots of things associated with this project that have been previously discussed and approved, for example, at preliminary, and there's no changes to that information. So that's the same. That is public information that's been on the website since December, right? It is the exact same as it always has been. And so to say that that information is not available, I think that's a little bit inaccurate. There's not just one final packet of all documents that comes forward to the city council. That's just not a typical process. That's not how that works. So if there ever is a question in the future, city code absolutely applies. There's no way to just not do city code to the way you describe that. So does that clarify at all? I think with what Blair said, hopefully with what I said, that kind of addresses that. But I'm, again, happy to, if that doesn't answer it, I'm happy to
Yeah, I
to
understand.
talk more about that.
And I agree with that. You know, Planner Phippen mentioned that all previous things that have been approved already aren't rehashed, aren't, you know, brought up. And
Right.
I understand that.
Okay.
Anyone else?
So I just have a question with the building permit. That won't come to council. That's just a staff thing. So the items of the radon and the mechanical equipment, that will all just be handled by staff and won't come to an open public meeting. Okay, thank you.
Right. I mean, that's the way I was looking at it.
That makes more sense to me.
That's
I was trying to
typically when
figure
you-
out why we didn't have it as well. So I
Right.
appreciate that.
That's typically when they would submit that, because they have their plat with the condo plat that shows the space, but these aren't detailed, construction plans ready to go build the building. That in that set is when we would expect to see the radon mitigation plan and how they're going to screen their mechanical units.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
All right. Anyone else? All right, then,
Was the developer okay with Wayne's changes on the development plan? Because I think that would need to be part of the motion, correct, Wayne?
If they're okay with it, that's the discussion point.
I
yes.
hope you kept good notes, Wayne.
I did.
I think I'm okay with everything. We haven't even begun to build yet, so the
agreed.
7 years, I would like to keep it at 7 years because we really haven't made any progress since the last two. So we've been doing this for 2 years. So thank you.
thank you, Joseph.
So one other just clarification typo, just on page 177, the actual documentation wording states, and we just need to clarify it. I know it's standard terminology, but we state in there that in an open public meeting on 13th of May 2021, the Planning Commission gave a favorable recommendation at the same hearing.
Yeah, so again, you'll notice on your desk, there's a modified one, those whereas statements, that fourth one that you identify. Yeah, that
That has been corrected.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just on that note, if I might make another note, the packet that was on the city website has Sherry, our city planner, Sherry Pippin's recommendation from the Planning Commission meeting for May 15th, rather than the city council meeting of May 25th today. But in the packet that the city council received has the correct memo and the correct version. Thank you. So we will get that updated and make sure that that's correct on the city website.
that's a staff error. I apologize for that. We'll make sure that that is updated on the city website so it reflects the actual information that the council received.
Thank you.
So sorry, just a follow-up question on Wayne's comment. The reason you want to make it 5 years instead of 7 years, what's the justification on that?
Yeah, I'd like to delve into that a little bit more. The way it reads is the term of this agreement, and we are actually, our question for Jamie, are we amending? And so this is an amendment to that, or is this in replace of? And so my statement is, are we restarting the clock with this agreement for 7 years, or does this continue the 7-year period from the original agreement?
I believe it would continue the period from the original agreement.
Okay. So we can change it to say 5 moving forward, or we just leave it as it stands, which means they have 5 more years, which I know you don't like that, but if the reason I like that is I want to see progress. I want to see this thing move forward. I don't want to languish for a long, long time. I know you want to do it as well. If we had a proviso in the end that after the 7-year period, an extension was required, that you can come back and seek an extension. And we would, as a council, want to know if there's been significant and proper progress being made. An extension could be offered or something along those lines. I think we can work something out in that regard, but I just didn't want to see the clock start over again and you got 7 years moving forward. So I don't know if I want to articulate that in the motion, but I'd like to articulate something to have staff craft language along that line to the agreement of what we're talking about here and to the developer. Is that, or do you need me to say that specifically what the language is?
I don't think you need to state the exact language, but in your motion, you may state direction to staff to make the edit stated.
Okay.
So you want to tackle that motion?
You bet, if there's no other comments. Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2128, South Weber City Council amending and restating development agreement for the loss at Deer Run in South Weber City with the following edits to Exhibit 1, that paragraph 6, last sentence be rewritten to state, however, that portion of the development fronting 2700 East Street shall have no less than 50% of the floor area on the first level of that structure be commercial. And that paragraph 14.3 be amended as stated earlier to reflect the time period of 5 years with the proviso that if they need additional time, that they can come back to the council given that adequate progress is being made. That is my motion.
Thank you, Councilman Windsor. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I just have a question. Do we need to add the conditional use permit into this one or the next
That
motion?
would be the next
One.
one.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a second. Is there any further comment? All right, then we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. All right, and then do I have a motion for Resolution 2129? Anyone?
I can try to tackle that.
Go for it.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2129, final plat and improvement plans for the lofts at Deer Run by developer Joseph Cook, with the clarification of staff and the developer to delineate ownership and maintenance of the utilities for O&M. Any other items we need to add for clarification? Oh, and incorporate the conditional use number 2021-01 in draft form. Include as part of the motion the conditional use permit 2021-01 in draft form.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Does that cover everything?
Can
All
I
right.
just point out that you are approving all the phases because they gave you final plans for all phases. And so you're approving all the phases, just so it's clear.
And include in my motion to include all phases A, B, and C. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, just so
where's it
you know,
1, 2, and
there,
3? I don't know. 1, 2, and 3.
sometimes you'll see residential developments that come forward with various
I
phases
assumed it was the whole thing.
at different times. In this case, all three phases are coming for final at the same time.
Okay.
Will you include that in my motion? To include phases 1, 2, and 3.
I still second that motion as
Okay.
amended.
Any further comment? Then we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries unanimously. I just want to tell Joseph Cook and all of you, thank you for all your hard work and how you've changed your plans to really help make this development something that is palatable to the city. You've done a lot of work and tried to work with us, and we really appreciate that. So,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
all
you.
right. Have a good night.
You hot?
All right, the next 4 items, action items, relate to the work done by staff and code committee and include documents related to land use. They are as follows: land use matrix, land use definitions, revisions to Title 10, Chapter 5, and repeal of the agricultural aircraft hazard zone. At the May 13th, 2021 PC meeting, the Planning Commission, I don't know where my mic went.
It's right in front of you.
Oh, there it is. The Planning Commission made recommendation to the City Council that the council approve the changes to each of these documents as prepared by Code Committee and staff. They made no suggested changes to what was presented. At a prior meeting, the commission had made a recommendation that the council repeal the A10 zone. The city attorney has been involved with the preparation of all the ordinances involved and has made sure they are compliant with relevant statutes. We'll go through them one by one and allow Councilman Windsor and Councilwoman Alberts to make any comments regarding each item. So we will begin with Ordinance 21-04, Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10-A, Land Use Matrix.
Can I jump in here?
Yes.
Before we get into that resolution and some of the details, I just want to extend a huge thank you on behalf of the heavy lift of our city planner, city attorney, city manager, Haley, and our planning commission members. They did a tremendous amount of work pulling this together and giving that to the planning commission. Thank you for that heavy lift. What you have before you here is a lot of information. On page 180 and 181 is the subject of what Mayor brought up. And this is a new document that we want to incorporate. It's called the Land Use Matrix. The intent was to pull out all the permitted and conditional uses from each subchapter for each zone and place it in one area. And this is where a person or a developer can go and look at comprehensively the uses, either permitted or conditioned. Thanks. I will point out two things in here. On page 180 in the upper left-hand corner, you will find in this document uses listed in the left-hand column, but they're not applied to any zone. I bring to your attention that use is not defined in this matrix. What I mean by defined is they're not shown in this matrix. If use is not shown in this matrix in the code section are not permitted at all. If they are in this matrix but have no designation of a particular zone, they are not permitted in that zone. So if you see, sometimes we define something just to clarify that use has a definition and we don't want it. So no one plays games with us. I would make one amendment to this document that came out after the Planning Commission reviewed it, and that was part of the Code Committee's discussion on accessory dwelling units. Here it would be dwelling accessory unit. It has a double asterisk on it. It's about halfway down on that page. You'll notice it's blank across because we didn't know where to apply it. The new legislation that passed says it must go in all of your residential zones, if not defined before October 1st. We can reduce it by 25%. Another criteria is the lots have to be more than 6,000 square feet. What we'd like to add to this document would be permitted in zones A, agricultural, RL, residential low, RLM, residential low moderate, and RM, residential moderate, that they be permitted. We do not recommend them be in residential patio or R7 because the unit size or lot size do not meet the 6,000 square foot requirement by the state legislative action. So whatever motion that's made today, that amendment to this document needs to be included.
And you went down to RLM?
We did all of the zones except for residential patio and residential R7.
I don't know that I
Dwelling, accessory unit, internal. We have to put them in all the units. That's the state
I
law.
agree. I'm just looking at the RLM that went in recently in the west end of town. It'd fill their whole backyard. I mean, they have 30-foot backyards.
Mm-hmm.
These are internal to
internal.
the structure.
Internal to the
These
Sorry, yeah,
are
these are
not a
internal.
second building on
Perfect.
a lot.
Sorry, I apologize
100%
for that. And that's a good question. We did have that discussion. These are internal accessory dwelling units that
Okay.
we're talking about.
I'm 100% okay with that.
Just to get the discussion going, and I don't know how many questions you have, but I do have one question of this council. We did, if you notice, define motels, but if you notice, motel does not show up on this. That's done deliberately. We wanted to define what a motel is, but we don't want it in the city. So it's not on here. However, there was quite a bit of debate on the city council about hotels. And Haley and I had quite the conversation along with the committee. We punted to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission punted it right back. And they were fine with it. I would like to hear, to make sure that the debate is out there and the public can hear it, I would like to hear this council weigh in on hotels as part of the commercial highway. And because that's whatever right now it's in here as a permitted use or as conditional use, excuse me, hotel as a conditional use on commercial highway. That's the only place it's allowed as a conditional use. So I would like to start the discussion on that item and then answer any questions the council would have on the rest of the land use matrix.
Wayne, may I add just something to that? I think, Gary, you're also here on the Planning Commission. You guys had some things that you wanted to that you wanted to let us know about on your discussion with the code changes. Is that correct?
So that is correct, and Taylor was going to be here to present those. I found out about 2 hours ago that he is in Texas, so I am not prepared to
Okay.
discuss that. I apologize. I didn't have time in my half hour to watch a 2-hour meeting.
The one thing that I remember is farm stands. I think that was the one
That's correct.
item. Does that sound about right?
Yes, so I'm even going to ask Julie if she remembers, because I'm,
And
It
hotels.
was farm stands and hotels were
Okay.
the topics, and I think we can deal with farm stands on a conditional use type thing and permitted in the city.
I don't remember exactly what the question was. I just
It
remember
was
that's what it was
something to do
about.
with were they allowed in certain zones? I think Wes brought the comment up. Is that not correct, if I remember it right?
Farm stand and farmer's market or
Because we have had them, but I think they can be dealt with on an individual basis personally.
Well, and Jimmy, we gave a great explanation on the difference between a farm stand being products on where you actually grow it, and a farmer's market, you take your product someplace else, and what's temporary and what's permanent. And that's what led us to the uses and then the assignment thereof.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to start off on hotels. I probably am one of the only ones that would live next to a hotel. And to be honest with you, with the new definition of a hotel and with it having a conditional use permit, I'm okay with it. I think it would be something that would be short-sighted if you say absolutely not. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Halverson. Other council members?
Oh, I'm on the committee. I already had this argument a few times over. Go for it, Quinn. I'll come back
wanna hear
around.
And did you lose?
Well, it got here, so I guess I punted it. I don't know.
I have similar feeling on hotels. I think if done right, it can be okay. In almost any of these things, how you roll them out. You know, the definition that we have here, I'm interested to your comment that the way it's defined, you're good with it. Can you expand on that, Blair?
Well, when they separated the hotel and motel and they defined with this, one entrance, doors inside, we start defining it. I don't want to get into name brands or anything, but it starts defining hotels that maybe not have the same problems that others do.
May I actually add some comments? I feel that let me give a little bit of context to our discussion as well in the committee, and as well as at Planning Commission, I believe. When we talk about conditional uses, Blair brings up a good point. There isn't a way for us to really try and get down to a certain brand or a certain look of a hotel outside of this definition. There isn't anything more after this. If there is any conditions, it would just be like on the lighting or on the amount of noise that they have, something to that. One of the kind of harder discussions or harder points that we had when we weren't sure what to do and why we sent it to Planning Commission was the idea of subjectivity of this committee feeling, well, I like it, but I don't, and sort of things. We refer to the survey that the general plan put out on the second survey. And it was a little difficult because the question was asked if you, on the uses in the city, how you felt about, what was the word? Transient lodging. And 78% were against it. But it kind of brought up the other question, well, what were they thinking when we said transient lodging? What does that mean? It's going to mean something different to everybody else. The only thing I can extend further on that is that if you were to look up the word hotel in the comments that they all left, it was mentioned, I think, over 20 times that they didn't want a hotel. So it was specifically called out, motels being more so and things. But so that's kind of where we were at of hoping to get a little bit more feedback from the community when it came to Planning Commission of, okay, this is what we mean. How do you feel about it? There wasn't a lot of feedback there. So just a little context to add to everything.
And Haley,
there was no feedback. Gary would like me to point that out. There was no feedback.
And just to clarify, maybe for the public's benefit, the council already knows this, permitted use, obviously, and people understand it's permitted. Conditional use is also a permitted use. It just comes with certain, can be mitigated, can come through, and those are very rare. Transportation or traffic flow, things that may have a safety or health hazard to the rest of the community. Those are what the conditions that need to be mitigated. But if it's in here listed and it is a condition, it is an approved use. It's not like, okay, it's conditional, so we have the option of throwing it out because we just don't like that brand or style. And I want the public to understand that that's what's being put forward here.
And if I'm correct on code, they would still be required at the 35 feet in height. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Yeah, all of our building heights and all of our codes, all of our zones, max at 35 feet.
Thank you.
Yep.
As it's written right now, we still have to go over that part of the.
We do have to go over that part, so
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
I'm ready to pass them all. You guys have done a good job.
Can I bring up one that staff has talked about and the committee has talked about? It's actually in the definition section as it relates to recent state legislation in the definition of family. And
Thank you.
so we've talked about this as a code committee. The state has defined family as 4 people. There's other nuances to it. Our code currently says 5. And so to comply with state law, we'd recommend that definition of family be changed from 5 to 4.
Well, we haven't
Everything
got to that resolution yet. That was the next one we were going to talk about.
We're not there yet. We're just on.
Come on, Dave.
Hold your horses, Dave.
Know that the definitions, as we're talking about how it's defined hotel and whatnot, you got me thinking. So I'm anxious. I'm excited.
Yes.
So just to finish up my thoughts on the hotel, I'm not saying I want a hotel here, but we've struggled to get commercial here without some sort of an anchor type thing. And if a hotel is an anchor thing that might bring it, then I'm open to considering that, because it doesn't look like we're going to get a grocery store. We're not going to get, some other high, good, beneficial commercial potentially. And so I don't want to shut the door on, a good hotel. But I do agree and understand that, if we say it's a permitted or a conditional use, it could come and it may not necessarily be what we want. But that's my thoughts on it right now.
Thank you. Councilman Soderquist. Councilwoman Petty.
I've been so quiet, huh?
You have.
She's saving up for later.
It's true. Gosh, I feel like this is kind of a tough one, but I really like the definitions. I feel like it's pretty clear. So I'm with Quinn. I'm definitely open to it, where we have the definition. What are you saying over there?
I said you're with Quinn, but not with
And
Blair.
Blair.
Oh, and not Blair though,
Blair
just
out.
Quinn. Michelle, can you notate? I'm just with Quinn. No, I'm definitely open to that. I want to take a page out of Paul's book though, and there's a spelling error in here. It's on page. You're welcome.
Hey, I appreciate
Page
it.
180, and it says cannabis cultivation facility instead of facility.
I think actually you should probably get an award, because the amount of eyes that has looked over this and missed that.
Thank you.
Award for that.
Okay.
Holly Award. There you go.
But I digress. That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Petty. Councilman Windsor, did you want to state your opinion?
I think it's, like I said at the beginning, it's a well thought out, very detailed document. It's gone through a lot of revisions and eyes, and I think it's a good document, and I would make the motion to approve Resolution 2129 if you're ready for that motion.
So I'm sorry, I do see 2 other potential questions or typos maybe in it.
I can clarify the motion if we're ready to go there. Yeah.
Okay. And we're talking the matrix right now, right?
Just the matrix. Yeah.
So in the second half of it, you had the existing and future uses. Are those ones that should have carried forward?
That second document, good question, Quinn. That second document is what we would call a red line version. We gave that to the Planning Commission and the council so they can understand what were the E being the existing uses for that definition, and F being the future recommendation. So you can see if we made changes or if we just carried it forward. That document doesn't come forward. The one that you're approving tonight is the page 180 and 181, the clean version. But we wanted you to have the understanding of what changed and what did it change to, if we deleted it or if we changed it from permitted to conditional.
So there are two things that you had on the second document that were slated as future that didn't come from the first document. And so I just want to make sure they were left off intentionally or if they were an oversight. Yeah.
Yeah, point those out, please.
So you have the wireless telecommunication, and that one you had as a conditional use for the,
NR, natural resource.
yeah. And that one didn't come forward to the original one, at least the copy I got.
Quinn, I just want to state that I am impressed.
I'm sorry.
I am now impressed. 'Cause I thought I read this.
Blair's with
before.
Quinn now too.
I'm with Quinn too.
Correct me if
other
I'm
one
wrong,
that
but I
didn't-
thought we deleted the wireless telecommunication facility.
Yeah, so was it not to come forward? Because you did have it listed as a future conditional use on,
Yeah, but I believe we redefined that as the, I'm trying to look for the other definition, but it's the electronic communications facilities and equipment as a new definition, and it's shown there. So
Okay,
we
so it
redefined the facility with a new definition, so it, yeah, it shouldn't have been a C for future. It is, but it's under a different definition.
so the other one that was that same way was recreational vehicle sales and rental. You had that.
And that was
as-
redefined as well, wasn't it?
That was
Yes,
that one
redefined
was.
also?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the final one is just on the original one, when you go down to the group homes, you lost all of the definition in front of the disability one. And so now we just have a disability zone or a, not zone, use. It should read group home facility for disability individuals.
That one we had to also redefine. We have group home and group home for elderly, residential facility for elderly persons. And then we have, there's one more.
Group home facility for persons with a
Right,
disability.
I'm
Yeah,
just
you're
saying,
exactly
in
right, Quinn.
Matrix, it just says disability.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It should have a
see.
longer
Yes,
title there. That would be the only change then
yeah.
that I would recommend.
We'll note that in the amendment or the proposal, motion.
Also, I just remembered what happened with Planning Commission. Would you like me to relay it? Planning Commission, it was farm stand and farmer's market. And the concern was the people who are able to sell produce in the lot next to Maverick. We don't allow farmers markets. Wait, now I got to go back and make sure I get this right.
That was correct.
Yeah, we don't allow farm stands in commercial. And they were worried that that would mean that they wouldn't be able to have those people come and sell anymore. But the definition of farm stand is selling your own produce on your own property. So that would happen just in agricultural zones. The farmer's market is still available in commercial zones. So that's still available for them.
All right. Would you like to make your motion now, Councilman Windsor?
If I can remember what the motion, the resolution number is, I gotta scroll through.
Ordinance
2021-04, ordinance of the South Weaver City Council amending provisions of Title 10 of the City Code to add a table classifying land uses across zones, and it's on. It just doesn't like me talking in it. Classifying land uses across zones in South Weaver City, given the following changes, that the dwelling, accessory dwelling, have a permitted use in all residential zones except residential patio and R7. That the
Yeah.
and that the other clarifications as brought forward with group dwellings, or excuse me, group home, and the spelling error be corrected. It should say group home residential facility for persons with a disability. Right now, it just says disability.
Okay. Did he
Second.
get everything? No. Okay,
so.
Councilman Halverson seconds that. Is there any further comment? And we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Windsor.
I guess. Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries unanimously. Ordinance 2021-05, Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10, definitions. Are there any comments or questions on this? Or
I think that a definition for family needs to be updated to say 4 instead of 5, as was previously noted.
I was just so anxious.
jumping the gun? Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I do have a question on the cannabis definition. All the other ones, so this is page, well, I don't know, it's all alphabetical, whatever it is.
187.
Thank you.
She
On
had
all
it
the other
earmarked.
ones where we have a lot of items, it says or, but on this one it says and. And I'm concerned that it's either, am I misunderstanding it, or could somebody hold that against and say, I'm not doing all three, so I'm not violating it?
Can you read it?
Which
So wait,
exact
are
definition?
you
All right.
talking about between C and D?
Cannabis product.
Okay.
Yeah, so it says cannabis cultivation means a person that A, possesses cannabis, B, grows or intends to grow cannabis, and C, sells or intends to sell cannabis to a cannabis cultivation.
Well, I
et cetera,
think,
et cetera.
I think we would want an and, because if it was an or, then that means a person could possess cannabis and
So I'm just
pretend.
saying and or, so they could do all three, or they could only do one of those things, and they would be then needing to abide by our zone thing.
Oh, so you're saying if they possess cannabis, then they would need to be in the light industrial zone?
If we put and, then they have to do all three in order to be in violation. If we put and or, they could do all three, they could do two, they could do one, but any of those options, they would still be needing
Oh.
to follow those guidelines. Am I correct in?
We gotta
As
be careful
I've-
with that one, because in the cultivation facility, if you put and or, that means they can have somebody ship in the cannabis and they just sell it there. The cultivation facility is intended to, if they're growing it there, and with the intent of selling it there. That's why it's and. So they can possess it and grow it, or intends to grow it, and it's intended to be sold there. That's the definition of cultivation facility. Otherwise, it's just a store.
I think you need all three to qualify as a cultivation facility. And that's why the and. If you
Yes.
say or, then somebody who simply possesses cannabis would be defined as a
Cannabis
cultivation facility.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to clarify, these definitions on cannabis, on the cultivation facility and other aspects of cannabis are pulled from state code and use the definition from state code verbatim. And I just double checked in the state code, it is an and, not an or.
So let me just run through the scenario then. If somebody not in the zone we've identified only does two of those three things, they are not in violation. They could be running cannabis out of their home with two of those three things. Is that not
Well,
correct?
yes, in a sense, but that doesn't mean what they're doing would be a permitted use within that area. And so I think what they would be doing is an illegal activity
Okay.
if they were doing any one of those things in isolation of the others. So it would have to be all of them together as permitted by the state, and then in the zone where we permit the use
Exactly.
for it to be a lawful activity.
So if they're just doing one or two of the three things, they're a dealer
Right.
illegally.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're doing all three, then they're a facility, which is legal.
Right. And that was my other comment question. If it's coming from the state thing, I'm sure a whole bunch of people have already approved it, so it's meaningless what I'm going to say. But a facility is a person. I mean, shouldn't that also say a person or place that possesses blah, 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 blah?
Yeah,
But-
that's a fair thing. I think the state code defines it as a person as that term is used legally, which is different than, somebody walking around on two legs. It can be a corporation can be a person, and there are a bunch of other legal persons.
Okay. I'm sorry, I got one other comment, and this is just my pet peeve, but there's obviously a powerful and cunning lobbyist group behind the cannabis and the sexually oriented businesses where they get this into our state statutes where, what about aloe vera? I mean, that's an important thing. Why can't we designate an aloe facility, or a truck stop, because we're right along a freeway, so we ought to designate a zone for a truck stop, but no, we have to designate it for a sexually oriented business. Anyway, sorry for my
But,
my rant, but I would like to know who in the legislature that I can write.
well,
to get
but
that cleared
if you
up.
don't have it zoned,
Right, yeah, I understand that.
you
We
have to
don't-
have it somewhere,
I know,
or then it can be put anywhere.
Anywhere.
right, but that doesn't
You have
apply
to
to
pick a
everything
place.
else.
That comment in
But
your
right,
That doesn't
answer,
apply to tobacco.
I agree,
It
but
doesn't apply to all
but-
these other.
it does apply though. So it does apply. If you don't have specifically something like a liquor store
Oh,
or
yeah,
some of
right.
those things.
I think he's just saying
designated.
that we have
I
to
know.
allow this. And we,
I agree.
Yeah,
this is a good
You do have to
conversation.
allow
Okay.
those.
No.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
kind of
plenty
took
of
us off. but-
allowing.
No, I'm glad you mentioned it because I think Joe Citizen who's watching this meeting or Jane Citizen who's watching this meeting may be thinking, why are we defining these terms and why are we allowing these uses within our city? Because we perceive them to be vices. And the answer is, as Blair stated it, that the way state law is written, if you don't identify a zone in your city where these uses are permitted, then you cannot exclude them anywhere. And
Right.
so you pick a little devil to exclude the larger devil, in a sense.
So, sorry, I do have one more thought. Is there a state code that says what zones you can pick and choose from? Because we've got a whole bunch of zones in here that aren't in this.
No.
Can we call it an internet zone? Because those things are available on the internet. They don't have to be physically available in our city.
I see the direction you're headed with that comment. I think the way some of these things are defined in state law, it would be a physical facility, not
Right.
just an internet-based
Yeah.
facility. State code does not identify the specific zoning district where they have to be allowed. They just have to be allowed somewhere, or else you cannot exclude them anywhere. And so the reason for allowing them somewhere is so you can prevent them.
Thank you.
You're good.
All right.
Best conversation tonight.
So far.
And we've all witnessed a Councilman Soderquist rant.
There's a first time for everything.
There is. All right. Any other questions on the definitions?
I just want to say that I feel bad because I kind of gave the code committee a hard time that it was taking them so long, but I appreciate all the work in this because this right here is why it took so long, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, they did a very good job.
All right.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve ordinance 2021-05 to South Weaver City Council amending provisions to Title 10 of the City Code to amend the definitions of land uses within South Weaver City with the change to the definition of family from 5 to 4.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? We'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries unanimously.
Mayor, sorry, I
Yeah.
just saw one more note that I had. And it doesn't change our definition, but under daycare, we also call out a must definition. In a lot of these others, we don't. Would that be somewhere else, or is this the right place for that? We have when a caregiver cares for only 3 children under age 2, the group size at any given time shall not exceed 6. If there are 8 or more children, there must be 2 or more providers present. That doesn't seem like a definition. That seems like a code. So is that captured somewhere in code? We don't need to remove it from here, but if it needs to be carried over to, I'd just like to make sure that goes in your next code committee.
You picked up
effort.
a very good thing because we tried to make sure that we eliminated any provisions from our definitions, and we missed that one.
That's on you, Haley.
Yeah, dang it. Quinn? I think you are correct.
I think yes, sir.
Correct?
I will make note of that and we can double check it. There are, as with cannabis, there are a number of definitions that are carried forward from state code. And Haley's right, as a principle, we culled the definitions to try not to legislate in the definition. And this appears to legislate in the definition. So I'll cross-reference that with state code and make sure it's not a definition we pulled from there. And then if it's not, we maybe can propose a modification that would put the legislation in the ordinance and the definition in the definition.
Thank you.
Good catch. Yes, thank you. All right, ordinance 2021-06, Title 10, Chapter 5, zoning districts.
This is a simple clerical change. Basically, what we did and already approved of doing the land use matrix. This ordinance cleans up the back end, which is removes from each and every zone the permitted and conditional uses out of those ordinances and references them to that which you just approved, which is the land use matrix. So it's simply a clerical change.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
That motion.
I'm sorry. I don't have any comments.
Okay, then do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2021-06?
I do. Hold on. I will make a motion. Sorry, let me pull out the paper. When I find the page number, I'm sorry. Okay. Is it 2021-05?
6.
06.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution ordinance 2021-06. I'm still trying to find the paper. Does anybody have a page number for me?
Title 10.
Title 10. Oh, it's
297.
hold on one second. I'm gonna get this.
Work in this package.
I'm trying. Sorry, there's so many pages. Okay. Mayor, I make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-06, Title 10, Chapter 5, zoning districts.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comment? Let's have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. All right, ordinance 2021-07, Title 10, Chapter 5, Section 2, Article A, repealing agricultural aircraft hazard zone. So there are no longer any provisions for the A10 zone, and so the PC has recommended it be repealed from the South Weaver City Code. Are there any comments on this? Then do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2021-07?
I move to, go ahead.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2021-07, Title 10, Chapter 5, Section 2, Article A, repealing the agricultural aircraft hazard zone, A10.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comment? Let's have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next item, Resolution 21-30, Canyon Meadows Park West Phase 1 construction contract. And I'm going to turn the time over to Councilwoman Petty to review.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask for Brandon and Dave's help with this, but as the Parks Committee has met several times, as you're aware, we did the CMGC process, which is a construction manager / general contractor to help us through this process. So they were able to get different bids from subcontractors and supplies and finally came back to us with the final price. The Parks Committee has met several times to whittle this cost down, but as everyone's aware, with the cost of everything that's gone up drastically over the last year, everything that we hoped to get in the budget didn't quite fit in the budget. So as I said, we have whittled some things down. We came up with a solution based, which from our finance director, Mac, who told us that it would be possible for us to the best word is to pre-designate or pre-spend future impact fees, which would allow us to complete the project that we have right now at a lower cost with today's dollar value, and while we have construction equipment and crew on site. That would allow us to get that done cheaper, and then of the future impact fees come in, which would take us 1 to 2 years to pay back. That would go back right to the capital facilities budget that we would be borrowing that from. The intent behind that, like I said, is to save money using today's dollar cost and while they're there, but also the committee has recognized and designated that any future impact fees would go to finish this project anyways, since that was on our priority list. Did I address that sufficiently? Okay.
Thank you. And when Angie says complete the project, that does not include sod or a bike
Complete
trail,
this phase of
correct?
the project.
Right. Okay.
It does not include the bike trail?
So not the finished path around the
Right.
park, but we
The-
will still have our dirt bike
The
path.
technical course.
Correct.
Okay.
Which I hope you use every day.
I will not.
Okay. Are there comments or questions?
Let's clarify the bike trail piece of this. That's not part of what Hogan will do. That's something that we would have to go and move dirt our own internal employees.
And are we thinking of getting sod another way?
Right. The sod. So I'll say it like this. When we originally put together the plan and had the parking lot, all the underground infrastructure for the future park, we talked about the city putting money into 4 pickleball courts, seeking donation for the other 4, having 2 basketball courts, having the dirt bike trail or bike park, and then having a walking path all the way around that. That was the initial thought when we started into this CMGC, and to see how much our estimate of the $1 million would get us. With prices as they've gone, we've actually had to remove the bike portion, the sod, the trail around it, the concrete path around it, and the second basketball court. So we're able to purchase less for the amount of money, essentially. And so that's what is included in what Hogan is presenting here.
We will, however, have sidewalks between all the facilities.
The only reason I ask that is I look at it, and I agree that this needs to move forward, but I just I'd rather not have asphalt in the parking lot and sod on the park. And I would think that would even be cheaper than the asphalt in the parking lot.
So I totally agree with you, Blair. I hate that we have to put a parking lot in first.
Why? We don't have to have a parking lot in first.
Yes, we do.
We have to have a parking lot, but you also require sod. I mean, if you're going to eliminate something, you're going to have dust blowing into people's homes. We're going to have dirt that's grubbed and blowing into people's homes
It
that
won't just
live
be,
all around there.
it won't just be bare. I mean,
Well, you're not going to just plant weeds. I mean, I don't mean to say it like that. You can't, what are you going to put there if you're not putting sod then, Brandon?
weeds.
Natural Utah bed.
I mean,
I'm sorry. That is just, it makes zero.
I
Have a road-based parking lot.
Our code does not allow
A
that.
code doesn't allow you not to have grass either. In a
It
home.
gives you a period of time to put in grass.
I agree.
Brent,
What is that period of time? I'm sorry, Quinn.
Go ahead.
Do you remember?
what,
Angie,
what
what's
was the
that?
question?
What was the period of time where we have to have the grass in per code?
Is it one? It's either 1 or 2 years, I want to say.
So where will those funds come from when we need to apply that
I mean, ultimately,
general
it's the
fund?
same conversation as far as the future impact fees. We could designate an additional amount of future impact fees and do the sod as part of it, but you're just putting more cost into this current phase, which is essentially what the Parks Committee is requesting anyway, We just had had that conversation about what to leave out. But that's a very fair conversation about including sod with
And
it.
I just said that just, again, I still think this needs to move forward. How much is the sod worth? Sorry, Wayne.
It was over 200,000 for sod and sprinklers.
And I think you have the answer in Brandon's updated memo, if I may jump into this conversation.
Some of us had to
I
work
don't
today.
I'm going to answer that
Can't keep
question.
memos all day.
I'm going to answer that question, then I'm going to back up a little bit more for the. In Brandon's memo, he says this project without the sod requires an additional $250,000 to complete the project phase one as you defined it here today. And then it goes on and says this equates to future impact fees that will likely take 1 to 2 years to pay back. So future impact fees, 2 years, $250,000. That's the estimate. You say you got 2 years to put the sod in. So your answer right there is you've got the monies coming to put the sod in the next couple of years using your future impact fees. If I understood that correctly. So you're basically earmarking future impact fees for city growth, estimating the growth to that one use. That's one thing I'm hearing. So I'm going to park that right there. And for the betterment of this discussion, this project was originally approved back in December for $1 million. That's what the estimate was. Now Hogan's coming back with a change order allowance. We're looking at $1,250,000. So we're right now over budget $250,000. What wasn't provided in the memo, and I was able to discern afterwards, is the additional 4 pickleball courts is not the scope creep or the overrun. The mayor's let me know that we have $150,000 in the bank for the additional 4 pickleball courts. So our budget is really 1,150,000, leaving us short 100,000 for these improvements. So what's before us today is, do we want to dip into the capital reserves, which right now are for capital projects, but I lament they haven't been earmarked for any one project. There we have the street lighting replacement. We have a public works building that's coming up. So we've got these competing interests. And I would admonish us as a council and as staff as we move forward, we need to start, as we put money into those capital reserves, they need to go to a project so that this council isn't left having to argue and debate how to spend those monies when the need comes up, that we can start working towards certain projects. But that said, I think it's worth, the additional $100,000 on top of what we've already committed from the capital reserve, which was 175. So the capital reserve is going to put 275 towards this project if this passes tonight. We all have the CARES displaced money, which is around 300,000, and then you have the existing impact fees of 525,000. That gets you to your, and the donations, that gets you to your 1.25. If I've embraced the definition, that's what we're being asked tonight.
Exactly. There was an email forwarded on today at 4:17. Chances are you didn't get a look at that, but I will explain the numbers even further just to make sure that there's no question on the numbers. The concept that Wayne described is exactly right. There's an amount of money the city has already budgeted for this. There's an amount of money that has come in with donations and in kind, so actual product rather than cash. And then all of that equals the total project amount. And so I want to be very clear on the total project amount and then back down out of that. So we get to how much of that is Hogan and that we're putting into the contract tonight. The total cost from Hogan is $1,269,194. There's an amount that's estimated for connection of power that we have to pay Rocky Mountain, which is an estimate of $16,000. Parking lot lights is an estimate $34,000, and then a contingency amount of $16,000, which gives you a total project amount of $1,335,194. That's the total before any donations or anything like that. There's been cash donations of 67,650 so far. And there has been an in-kind donation from Staker Parson for $85,000. So you take those two numbers out of that 1.335 million, and the total after donations is 1,182,544. That's the number that has come before the council tonight. We previously budgeted 1 million, and so we are suggesting that that remaining amount, 182,544, is that amount of future park impact fees.
Or it goes to sod.
Well, either way, it's an amount of future park impact fees. If we want to do sod in addition to this, it would be more than the 182,000. It would be an additional that we're committing to spend now and have park impact fees be earmarked to pay. The 182,000 right now gets us the parking lot, gets us the 8 pickleball courts, and gets us the 1 basketball court.
I don't, sorry, Angie, but I don't want to confuse this. You're asking for an additional 182,000 from the capital reserves because we previously approved 175,000. So now the capital reserves is putting over 300,000 to this project, about a third or a fourth of the cost. 25% of the cost is coming from unassigned reserves, and that's a big hit that this council needs to understand. I think it's important to understand that, and we need to reimburse that money quickly. That's the concern.
Yeah, you stated that absolutely correctly.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the donations were specifically for the pickleball courts. So that's why they were the city had already committed for 4, and the donations raised were for 4 more.
One thing that the committee discussed quite a bit, to Blair's point, is what do we cut out? I mean, ultimately, this is a balance between how much money is available currently and this future commitment of impact fees versus what can we get done, right? And the total cost for all of the amenities that were planned for that side of the park is much more than this, right? This is just phase 1. So there's that timing element of how much cost over time, but what's that balance between what do we do now versus what do we do later? And there's quite a bit of discussion. And the goal of the committee was to put as much money into usable amenity as possible. And I think that's why grass ended up being one of the things that wasn't included, although that is an argument that it is usable
You
amenity.
get right to my point is grass is the usable part of the park. And if you were sitting there as their neighbor, I get a code issue, but we're the city. I mean, I don't see us putting grass in there. I don't see us getting $250,000 in the next 2 years to put sod and sprinklers in there. I guarantee you if those neighbors right there would rather have a road-based parking lot and grass and sprinklers in the park. And I don't know what the cost of that asphalt is, but you do the math per square foot, it's probably about $180,000 to $200,000. Brandon could probably tell us way more accurate than that. It pretty much is a trade-off. We have another gravel parking lot in the city. How come we haven't paved that if it's that big of a deal? So we live in a rural city. Everybody wants to live in a rural city. They can live with a road-based parking lot if they want to feel rural still, or they can move somewhere else. So that's my opinion. And I think I was part of the discussion trying to figure out how to get these phases done. And to me, that's not finishing it completely. If we're going to take the hurt and the pain of it, let's get it done and start saving up for some other phase of that park, another park, doing whatever. But to me, that's going to sit there and be an eyesore like it is right now if we don't put grass down. Who's going to go over and play in the dirt and weeds? Well, a lot of little kids will. But and I'm not trying to be the downer on it. I just think that is the wrong place to put it.
So your suggestion is in place of asphalt parking lot to road base the parking lot and put sod in.
And I guess I just didn't pick up on that And I also didn't read Brandon's memo, so I didn't have time today.
Or the other option is we include the sod now and so we're
Exactly.
borrowing from the capital reserves up to $500,000 of the million that's in there. So basically taking 50% of our capital reserves to finish.
Yeah, and I don't, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Let me,
That's the other option.
can I weigh in one thing on the cost options? Part of the money we pulled for last year from the capitals was unexpected extra money from the COVID tranches, where we had budgeted stuff from our city budget, but we didn't have to pay for it. And so that's why, I mean, it does sound like a lot, $300,000 or whatever it was.
Well, there was three
Right.
line items. There was the impact fees, which I went back to the December 14th meeting.
Right.
And that was 525,000 from the impact fees, 300,000 from the CARES displaced, and it still left us with 100,000 that had to come from the capital reserve to
Right.
get to the million.
So we had to borrow that. So I guess my comment is we have another CARES type thing coming up this year. Is there a potential of, again, unexpected funds coming into the city that would defer some of our current budgeted money that would be unexpected that could be applied to the sod if we want to add that to this? Because I agree, we would love to have sod in it now as well. We'd love to have the parking lot, but as has been stated, we, as a committee, had to come up with something to try to meet the budget. And that's why we were bringing it to the committee. If the committee's welcome to the idea of us borrowing from other expected funds or stuff that we already have, then I'm sure we'd, as a Parks Committee, love to do that, to get this finished right. But that's been our dilemma.
So short answer to the ARP money
Mhm.
is no.
It won't be.
The ARP money is going to be very, very different than the CARES money. They're almost two completely different mindsets with what we're getting now. We have an agenda item coming up for the next council meeting to go over what we know so far about that, but it's actually quite specific. However, one of the things that it does identify is some infrastructure needs. And so there's an argument perhaps to be made that some of this underlying infrastructure is part of that money, that ARP money. I think we don't know enough yet to make that determination one way or another. It potentially could be an option. And if it does, I think it's a great option, but that's still kind of yet to be determined.
So I just want to make it clear, I don't feel like anyone on this council, and speaking for myself, I should say, we're not trying to, drain our reserves by any means. The challenge that we have is time value of money, and we're really fighting that right now. And if we hold on to this and don't spend it, then 500,000 becomes $300,000 worth of stuff. So when we just, and I'm going to refer to Brandon here for a second.
I'm with you.
Okay, when we talked about the parking lot, and we did discuss doing road base, but the savings to do the road base versus the asphalt, we had to get all the infrastructure in, everything prepped and ready to go for every phase to be completed.
Right. You wouldn't want to put down road base or gravel or something like that and then come back through and dig it all up as you run the other utilities in underneath it. That's just extra cost. I looked up the specific line item for Hogan on the asphalt. It's 46,000. It's actually ends up being about $1.23 a square foot, which is cheaper than I think what you would see with. Yeah. So I don't think you'd be able to just eliminate that in exchange for the topsoil sprinklers and sod. If you feel that's important, we could certainly work with Hogan to get a cost for what they think it would be to add the grass at this point and bring it back. right now, the reason that it's on the agenda tonight was this was the quickest we could work with them, finalize the design, get everything prepped and ready, get their guaranteed maximum price in place for you to be able to issue their contract, if you're comfortable tonight, so they can start on construction, because there's a lot to be done just with the stuff that is in this phase one.
Brendan brings up a good option, I think, for consideration, and that is we could do what we've got tonight, and we could get a cost from Hogan as far as the sod and what that would look like, and bring that back so that you almost as an alternate or something like that, an additive alternate to the project with a specific cost, and we could then talk through financing options for that portion.
I also want to bring to the attention of the rest of the council, we've been discussing the potential of putting the wrap tax on the ballot, which would be a source of income for the parks, for facilities, to try to build up our parks budget. Whereas right now, we're not really adding anything into parks year to year. But however, with all of our developments, we're actually adding a ton of green space to our city, and we're just not increasing our budget to help maintain that proportionally, in my opinion. But so that's something to consider. We are trying to think of different options to kind of manage this.
Staff is preparing information on a wrap tax, a recreation, arts and parks tax. A brief summary right now is that it's a 1% addition to sales tax within the city. And so any sales tax item, it would just be a small addition that would be specifically earmarked for recreation, arts and parks. It would also have to go before the community as a ballot proposition. So it would only be implemented by a vote of the people. And that would then only be for a period of time. And if the community did implement that, then it would have to be revoted again 8 to 10 years. So that estimates to be about $60,000 a year if it were to be voted on and implemented within the city based on our current sales tax amount. So we're putting together information on that to bring forward to the council, because ultimately your decision would be, do you take that forward to the community as a ballot proposition or not? So there are additional ways we're trying to think as a committee as far as funding recreation, and that's one of them that will come forward with additional information. It doesn't change the conversation tonight, but know that there are multiple facets to funding recreation within the community.
One other thing to note, to Brandon's point, as we have presented this tonight, because our contractors have really, our contractor Hogan has really pushed their subcontractors. How do I say? We're getting a good deal right now, which doesn't sound like it's a good deal because it's so expensive, but they're having difficulty. You know, there's like PVC is in scarce supply, concrete.
Great.
So for us to get this, not to, what do we call this? Total high
Guaranteed
dollar
maximum.
amount. Thank you. Guaranteed maximum amount does give us a little bit of security in these uncertain times.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Can I ask a few more questions?
Sure.
Sorry. Okay, thanks. Okay, I don't know if it's late. I don't know if my head hurts or if I'm dumb, but the math, I'm trying to understand it again. So just to make sure I understand, with Brandon's latest email, we're asking for 544 from impact fees. But the note here says it would be 250,000 to complete phase one, which is a difference of like 67,000. I'm confused at.
That includes the 250 is including the cash donation if you take the cash donation off, then it's
Oh.
only 100.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So just a couple quick questions. What is SWPPP?
W what?
SWPP,
Swppp.
Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan.
The
When a construction project happens, they can't let debris go into the storm drain system. And so they protect the stormwater.
little hay bales.
You learn something new every day. And then it says fencing. Is the fencing just around the pickleball courts or around the park? Where's the fencing at?
Which part? There will be fencing around
It just says
parking
that
lot, and there's fencing around the pickleball.
And that's it.
That's it.
fencing. Sorry, can you say that one more time?
There'll be fencing around the parking lot
Okay.
and fencing around the pickleball
Okay,
court.
thank you. And then the gravel pits, the in-kind donation, is it going just towards the pickleball concrete only?
Yes.
So just, I guess, out of curiosity, how much is it to pour the 4 quarts concrete at 85? Does it cover the whole
Because
amount?
it's tension concrete, it's more expensive than regular concrete.
Oh,
Yeah.
It does not cover the concrete cost of all the courts,
just the 4.
or even just the 4.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then just on the topic of grass, have you guys looked into other options like hydro seed or anything?
We can definitely look into that, see what it would cost. I don't know. I don't have an answer on that.
That one would, I know that one would be difficult because it would require, section off the park for
Yeah.
a season. But maybe if we could put it up in the late fall and open it back up in the early spring. I don't know. Well, I just want to thank the committee for your work on this. I know that this stinks because we had something and then you guys have had to just totally hack at it because I don't know what happened, but something went nuts. So I appreciate all your work on this.
Thank you. I appreciate all the council's input because I know that this is not ideal, is it?
Mhm. It's frustrating, but it does need to move forward.
Which is the gravel parking lot that we don't have paved that Blair was mentioning?
Aussie.
Potsy grounds.
Oh,
And you don't want to pave that anyway.
I think there's specific reasons why you don't pave that. I mean, I'm not a horse expert, but those that I talk to are glad that there's not asphalted parking lots where they go.
All right. Do I have a motion then?
Are there any other questions that the chair can answer?
Nope.
Okay.
Just so it's very clear, the contract amount for Hogan should be 1,184,194 or 194. 1,184,194.
Thank you, Brandon. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 21-30 Canyon Meadows Park West Phase 1 construction contract to Hogan for the amount of $1,184,194.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further comment?
I'd like to amend that motion with another motion that we include landscaping, sod or whatever within the 2-year time frame of the work begins. I want to see grass get in there, so we need to come up with a plan and make that happen.
I'd like to amend my motion to reflect that.
And do we still have a second?
Second.
Okay. Anything else? We'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Oh, thank you.
They can break ground tomorrow. Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question
Sure.
on the sod piece there? Is that option A to go back to Hogan and get a cost and bring that back to the council? Or is that option B of use future impact fees? Which of those were you suggesting?
I'm suggesting staff come up with a plan so that we have sod on the ground in 2 years.
Okay.
I think that should just be a committee assignment, Angie.
You want me to lay it all myself?
Yep.
You got it.
All right,
We do sod parties all the time.
that's true. We'll just put the west over it.
Okay.
Well, we do have a bunch of sod that's going to be cut up by the the Cherry Farms part. If citizens want to help move a whole bunch of sod down, we could potentially do that.
Or the Soderquist family.
Or Soderquist family. I have one son at home these days. So.
Oh, darn.
Staff will work with the committee to accomplish sod in 2 years, sooner if possible.
Okay, thank you. Next item is Resolution 21-31, Master Lease Agreement. The city's vehicle replacement policy was approved on March 23rd, 2021. Included in the policy is the leasing of city vehicles and equipment. Presented for your approval is the Master Lease Agreement for the leasing of vehicles and equipment. Bancorp Bank is on the list of Utah's statewide best value cooperative contracts. All equipment purchased by Bancorp, I don't know, is it Bancorp or Bancorp?
Bancorp.
Okay. Through this lease agreement will also be done through state-approved cooperative contracts. This assures the city will get the lowest lease costs possible. Are there comments or questions on this?
Help me with the term of this lease agreement. I couldn't find it. Is it an open-ended lease agreement? Is it a 5-year term? Is it a 3-year term?
Let me see.
I couldn't
It's
find
very
it.
last
303, 304.
last page.
I think it was open-ended.
Yeah,
Want to say
the only
it was
thing, it
open-ended.
just says if the term of the lease exceeds 12 months, that's on each vehicle.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a
I
termination.
don't believe there was a specific.
So is staff
Okay.
requesting us to have a lease agreement with Bancorp for a certain time period before it comes back to the council for renewal? Like a contract services is basically what you're asking?
Yes. The idea is that this is a state contract,
Okay.
and to do the program, they're the ones that make that happen. And so, yes, we would go with them to do the program. We've identified the amount of money that would be spent through the budget process. We've budget, and then
So basically what we're asked to approve tonight is a contract services. We can specify in the motion the time frame of that contract services, be it 3 years, 5 years, whatever we want, before it comes back. Even if we want to discontinue the lease program after a certain time, or if we want to continue it, we can always go back to state contract. This isn't just an open-ended agreement, I guess is what I'm saying. So whatever motion we make should have a time frame on it.
yes, if the council would like us to revisit this in a certain period of time, then you can designate how quickly you'd like us to review it.
Okay.
So Bancorp, are they the only state option, or are there multiple options and you picked them from the option?
My understanding is that they were the only state contract that does this.
So if the state revised the contract with somebody else next year, we would then have this null and void. We'd have to go through this again, or does it?
We would
carry
have
over?
the option to look at, whether there's a better option for us, right? If the state changed who's on the contract, then we could look at switching who we went through for it.
We can stay with this one if there's better terms, or go with the new.
All right.
the state
Yeah,
contract.
ultimately, the state contract is there for us to ensure we're getting good value for public money. And so if we're comfortable and happy with how we're proceeding with them, there's nothing forcing us to change. But to Wayne's point, if we want to put a time marker in there for us to reevaluate, to just confirm that we're still getting best value, then that's a best practice. So whether it states it in the contract with a term limit, or we just make that an internal conversation and an internal process for us to revisit it every 5 years or something like that, that is good practice to just confirm over time that we're still getting good value.
Other questions? I do have a motion.
Yes, I have a question. So what time frame does the city feel or the council, excuse me, feel comfortable with revisiting this?
3 years.
Awesome. That's what I was going to say too.
Okay.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2131, approving a master lease agreement with Bancorp Bank for a time frame of no more than 3 years.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further comment? We'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll move to reports. Do we have any new business? Okay, hearing none, let's go to reports. Dave and I met with Rob White, the new UDOT Region 1 Director. Among other things, we talked about the I-84 US 89 interchange, the box culvert under US 89, the trail under I-84 with the interchange project, and study on South Weaver Drive for widening bike and possibly bike lanes on South Weaver Drive. Also talked about the speed limit on South Weaver Drive, and I believe Dave was going to follow up with him again on that. So I'll let him talk about that if he has any update. City Council had an appeal hearing for Cobblestone Resort last Tuesday and determined to uphold the decision by staff to deny Cobblestone a business license. And I just want to say that Jamie Blakesley did an exceptional job in representing the city, and we thank him for his work.
I'll second that. That was fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. I attended, along with other council members, the fire station name unveiling in honor of Wim Plume, who was the fire chief in South Weaver City for many years and instrumental in getting the new fire station in our city. Enjoyed hearing the history of the fire department, as well as the character and actions of Wim during his time as chief. Some great tributes were given by those who've served with Wim on his behalf. That was a great thing. So, Legislative Policy Committee meeting was yesterday, and they spoke about the ARPA, or American Rescue Plan Act. I'm not going to go into detail, but they addressed what it covers and what it restricts. And we have until December 31st, 2024 to obligate the funds, and we have until December 31st, 2026 to fully spend the funds. The legislature also set aside funds for 2 matching grants in association with this ARPA. 50 million matching grant program where the city's match could be property taxes or ARPA funds. And then there's a 35 million state grant for zone changes. They would give a grant if a city took an industrial or commercial zone and rezone to residential or mixed residential. Yeah, I knew that would fly here.
What if our sexual oriented businesses are in our industrial zone? Does one top the other then?
I'm not sure.
There's your workaround, Quinn.
Okay. They also spoke of the state legislature interim issues, which include development, revenue, housing, public safety, the homeless, and possible grants for secondary water meter funding. The questions have arisen. Who pays for the growth, existing or current residents? That's a hot topic. Infrastructure challenges that cities deal with. The lack of starter homes is a concern at the state. The state versus local control is big. And then control over timing and housing stock doesn't address market forces is a problem with cities. Public outreach is another one that local officials is difficult for them because they're getting pressure from the state and pressure from their citizens, which are in direct conflict with each other. One thing that the ULCT does state that Utah leads the country, is one of the top in the country for the ability of legislatures to work with cities. But tensions are high right now, and the concern is that only around 10% of legislators served in local government. So all of you council members, you might want to make that your next step. And then, yeah, but I think that's all I have. Unless Wayne or Dave have any more on the LPC item. I think we're good. All right, let's go
Mayor,
to,
may I ask a question? I just wanted to hear more about your meeting with UDOT, about the trail, the box culvert. Is there any news on that, or you were just touching base with them? Or-
we were kind of apprising them of it because he's new and he doesn't have all the information. We were just making sure that it was on their radar, that they knew our intentions and our desires and could follow through with it. So
So as far as nothing's changed, Davis County would still be maintaining and
yes,
doing all that. Okay.
that is correct. And I just found out today that Geneva has approved the location for the trail on the east side of the box culvert. Hallelujah. So hopefully that will move forward now. We've bumped the box culvert to next summer, but it should be ready to go next summer. So
Thank you.
all right. Okay, Councilman Halverson.
The only thing I had to report on was Planning Commission, and most of you have heard what happened at Planning Commission. The only thing that wasn't brought up was there was a public hearing and action item for a rezone for the Stevenson property to CH. The motion was tabled because of lack of a concept plan, correct? So that was the only item that really we haven't discussed. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Alberts.
We're just continuing to working on the website, and it's slow and takes a long time, and it's frustrating at times. I just wanted to ask, Dave, when you meet with Rob White and UDOT, can you talk to him about the crosswalks that we discussed as well?
Right.
Yeah, I'll
I
follow
haven't
up on
heard
that.
back on those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Soderquist.
I don't have any significant updates. We do have the budget we've discussed a lot about. We did get, again, a record sales tax payment from the state. So that's been a blessing from our financial standpoint for the city. Beyond that, I'd just like to, again, commend the Code Committee for an amazing job and everything that they've done. The staff and everything for support with that, as well as our parks effort that we've been doing. And also just add a note to what the mayor said about Jamie and his support of our recent appeal situation. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Petty.
Thank you. I just want to thank the council and staff also for the work on the parks thing. This has been really exhausting. Just maybe not as exhausting as all the code, but it was
I like
a
the
lot of
code.
work.
It's fun. It's really fun to.
You know, I should put Brandon on the spot and ask him which committee's the funnest.
Brandon hasn't been to code, but
Careful.
it's coming.
I do not recall.
No, we have a good time at the Parks Committee. But thank you, council, for the approving the resolution so we can get started. So on that note, there is a pre-construction meeting this week, so we can jump on that and get that going. And so that's exciting. Also, I don't know if anyone's noticed or paid attention, but part of the PR committee, we decided to do some employee spotlights. So we started with our public works employees. So on the city social media, you'll notice we have some employee spotlights that are coming out every couple weeks. So please
Thank you for
note
reminding me
that.
on that. I forgot to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's all I have to report. Thanks.
And the YCC put up the flags for the fire station.
That's right. And they were asked to put them up for Memorial Day as well.
Sweet. All right, thank you. And Councilman Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple reports. We'll start with our favorite, mosquito abatement. They are in need of seasonal employees. They're really hurting. 17-year-olds, yeah, they'll take them if they can ride a bike and they'll go along the curbs and gutters and spray the storm drains, but they want 18 and older nighttime sprayers versus daytime sprayers, a little salary difference there. I think it's like $12.13 or 11 or 12, something like that. So if you have interested people, people coming back from school, looking for a part-time job, there you go. Mosquito Abatement District is considering a truth and taxation hearing. The last one I think they had was over 4 years ago. We haven't solidified how much revenue that they're seeking, but it could have a $2.80 a year increase up to $4.92 a year per home increase. So very small increase.
Who was that? I'm sorry, I missed who that was.
Mosquito Abatement
Mosquito?
District
Okay.
of Davis.
Thank you.
So that will be coming on your tax bill. And I have the Wing Beats. It is a very, very important magazine for mosquito abatement. I share this. I'll leave it with staff if you want to read it. There's a couple articles from our own general manager from the Mosquito Abatement District. But yes, the mosquitoes are a very important, and they have their own magazine, Wing Beats. So there you go. I'll pass that down. Thank you for that little levity. Municipal Utilities Committee, we met a couple weeks ago. We have given staff the direction as a committee to put out a request for proposals on the subject of fiber optics. Now, I want to qualify, this does not obligate the city. This is not determining the specific method for fiber optics. This is simply a request for information of the different means of which to bring fiber in. And there are several different ways: privately owned, publicly owned, municipally owned. And in that RFP, they will provide us more specific data than what we have right now with regards to costs, time frame, speeds, everything we need to know. The hope was when we get that out here in June and we can review it and have some information to bring back to this council and the public with that submittal, so we can have a discussion either in a town hall or in a public meeting of some sort as to what are our next steps. What do the citizens of the city want us to do in regards to fiber optics? And there's a gamut of information. We can try to explain all that, but right now we just don't have the details. So we thought to go out with an RFP, get the details, and then make our best decision moving forward. So any questions on that one? Code Committee, we stay active. We do have a new ordinance that is going to come forward on accessory dwelling units. Staff are putting the final touches on that with the schedule for that to go to the Planning Commission at the July 8th Planning Commission. They will be reviewing that, and then they'll hopefully bring that back to your attention. It's a new ordinance, so it's not a redraft of anything. Currently, we are working on conditional use and defining conditional uses and coming up with a conditional use ordinance. And we started our first brainstorming event today. And like with code, we start at 30,000 feet and we start hashing out these global discussions. And every once in a while, we'll step in a hole and get right down to 5 feet real quickly and resolve some answers. And then we float back up to 30,000 feet and start trying to grapple with the myriad of discussions. So our focus now is on conditional use, and hopefully in the coming, I'm going to estimate, hopefully for the end of summer, we'll have something to come back to the Planning Commission and Council. And those are my reports.
All right, thank you. Dave.
We recently sent out information about the dog park ribbon cutting for this Friday. If you have had a chance to go and drive by the dog park, it is not ready for that event. The sod is not taking like we want, and there's been some issues with the sprinkler system. And so we need to postpone that event for this Friday until it is ready to actually have use on the sod. And so stay tuned. We'll let people know when it's ready to go, but it's not going to be this Friday. We'll spread the word that event has been postponed.
Just as a clarification, there was an email that came out today and said the 27th, and then there was the posting on the Facebook page that said 28th. Both are now incorrect, so I think.
Yeah. It was scheduled for Friday.
A day
but
every hour.
yeah.
Is there any
So
I-
we're in contact with the developer on what's going on there and why. But ultimately the sod isn't taking, it's not getting water the right way. Some of that I think is human error. Some of that is the sprinkler system. And so we're working to make sure that that is a functional amenity for the community before we open it up.
So it's postponed indefinitely at this
No,
point?
I said don't use indefinitely. It's just postponed
Oh.
till further notice.
Temporarily.
Oh, that's so much better.
It is.
Okay. All right.
Based on that direction, I will not use the word indefinitely till further notice.
Okay, thank you.
The only other thing that I'll point out, I know the Public Safety Committee has been working on speeding and traffic on Old Maple Road. There's been a number of steps that have been taken to help in an interim type solution until a long-term solution can be established or finalized. The old speed trailer that we had that was broken, Mark Larson had some connections and was able to find somebody who actually could make that work again. So the speed trailer is over there now. There's some striping and things that will be part of the street maintenance project for this year that can hopefully make a difference down there as well. Putting the speed limit on the road itself as you get onto it, have that painted on the road, and striping actually is a useful tool in many places where if you feel somewhat squeezed in a road, like it's narrow, even if it's perception, it can help decrease speed a little bit. So we're trying to use some of those tools as well as look at longer term solutions and do some research on that. But we're trying to make a difference for Old Maple Road as much as we can immediately, as well as look at long term solutions.
Is the speed trailer able to record the speeds without it being turned on?
The old one, no.
And it's not able to record speeds at all?
No, well, it does get the data. There's no software in the world, I think, at this point that would be able to pull that data off. So
Okay.
we have talked about potentially using the sign on 1900 East that does gather that data. That's kind of debatable. We like it there.
We're not far off from getting the other signs.
And then once July hits, we've got some things that have already budgeted to help with that kind of data gathering. So we are working towards solutions on Old Maple Road.
One thing that we talked about with Rob White that I forgot was, what are those bulb? Anyway, there's things that stick out in the road. It's like extra curb
Bump outs.
next to, yeah, bulb outs.
Bulbs or bump outs. Yes.
Bump outs, yeah. And I saw some today. They're next to intersections or where roads meet or things, and they really slow the traffic down. I was down at Daybreak, and they have those in some of their residential areas.
Those little bumpy things that you drive on?
No, so the road narrows next to the intersections or where roads meet. And so people have to slow down to, and in some cases they're like 16 feet road widths at those points. Yeah. And they really, so that might be something to look at. I think that would be nice to have along South Weber Drive next to the charter school and those businesses there. I think on that one side or something. I don't know. Anyway, just an idea, but all right.
The only other thing is more of a question for the council. How frequently do you want to continue to have the Corona updates during council meetings?
Oh,
We're
yeah.
done.
I'm good with not doing it anymore. Plus, we don't meet every week now. It's like once a month. So
It was interesting.
You
that
mean
we had so many, though.
I mean Davis County.
the health department
We
has those
meet.
update meetings once a
Yeah.
month now. So
Yeah.
okay.
I'm
Similar to
good.
Angie,
I
was
would
hoping
say
you'd
only
that,
only
so-
when there's something significant to report.
Okay.
Okay, we'll remove those.
All right.
Thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Jamie, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything, but I appreciate the kind words.
All right. Thank you. Brandon.
Just an update on Cottonwood Drive. If anybody's been over there, they, last couple of days have been placing some fill on the south side of the road to try to expand the parking area for some of those people and be able to make that a little safer. And then the plan is that they will be milling the road tomorrow, grading the rest of the week, and be paving next week.
Wow.
Great.
Okay.
So that's the plan.
Have
right
they
now.
moved all the field they're going to over there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. All right, Michelle or Lisa, you have anything? Oh, where did she?
He just barely left.
Oh, okay. All right, well, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.